Welcome to SCPs with Steven, a series where I spin a wheel with 1,000 different SCPs listed on the SCP Wiki. It should be noted, these are not all of the SCPs that exist online. There are thousands more listed under its own series on the Wiki, which I will leave a link to below. Without further ado, let's give the wheel a spin.
SCP-595. SCP-595. Object Class: Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-595 is currently stored in either Enclosed Dry Dock 2, Redacted, Virginia, or a secure Foundation warehouse district in Philadelphia, depending on SCP-595's current state. Both sites are restricted without Level 3 access clearance or higher. Access to SCP-595's interior is restricted to specially selected Class D personnel or mobile task forces with approval from either site's local administration. Due to the nature of SCP-595's effects, it is imperative that no personnel or sensitive equipment be located within the storage sites after SCP-595 has been dormant for over 2 hours. Normal research activities may resume at one of the two sites after SCP-595's documented effects have subsided. Description: SCP-595 is a Cannon-class destroyer escort, DE-Redacted, USS Redacted, commissioned by the United States Navy in late 1942. It is no different from any other vessel of its class, with the exception of several munitions magazines filled with Redacted of unknown manufacture. These devices cause the vessel and a limited surrounding area to be permeated with abnormally high levels of electromagnetic radiation. Periodically, the devices induce a tremendous spike in the amount of electromagnetic radiation, resulting in effects outlined in Document 595-1. While these spikes are mostly regular in their timing, they can result in severe damage to surrounding equipment and personnel if safety precautions are not strictly adhered to. The ship is tied to reports of a secret U.S. Navy experiment, Project Philadelphia, purportedly investigating principles of teleportation and possibilities of camouflaging naval vessels by bending light around them, rendering them invisible to the naked eye. The failure of the experiment resulted in the loss of nearly the entire crew, as they were unable to contain it. The U.S. Navy agreed to turn SCP-595 over to the Foundation for further study. Unfortunately, information relating to the experiment has been made public. Cover-up efforts are detailed in an addendum below. Document number 595-1. SCP-595 self-contained, redacted devices are known to cause varying spikes in radiation levels at regular intervals, approximately every 3 to 4 hours. When the Foundation acquired SCP-595 from the United States Navy, little was known of the device's side effects, as the Navy had already destroyed almost all relevant documentation. As such, testing commenced in earnest, producing the following known results. The foremost effect of SCP-595's tremendous levels of electromagnetic radiation is that the ship can exist in one of two locations, varying randomly and requiring two teams of researchers to fully monitor SCP-595. The vessel has been observed, with lower bursts, to appear translucent and in some cases, almost completely transparent to the naked eye, while remaining in place at its current dry dock. Any personnel located on or within a radius of redacted meters of the vessel while it is undergoing a radiation burst can be subjected to the following effects. Personnel not located aboard the ship but still within its area of effect display effects similar to that of SCP-595 itself, sometimes reappearing in place, but sometimes showing up at the other secure facility. There have also been occasions where these personnel have disappeared completely and did not reappear in any Foundation-controlled sector. An incident of this nature, in 19 Redacted, resulted in the loss of redacted U.S. Navy personnel, prompting the current containment agreement. Persons in physical contact, either on deck or inside, with SCP-595 are subject to the effects listed above, but with markedly increased danger. These properties were discovered when Agent Redacted was trapped on the ship, faded out of sight, and, upon returning, was fused to the bulkhead he had been standing near. Inspection showed a perfect molecular bond of tissue to metal, cleanly severing the entire lower portion of the agent's abdomen, which protruded from the opposite side of the bulkhead. When questioned, the agent reported feeling no pain, but was unable to move his lower extremities and exhibited signs of extreme nausea and early stages of acute radiation poisoning. Attempts to recover the surviving portion of the agent's body from the ship ultimately resulted in his death. During the same incident, 3 Class D personnel had been assigned to clean the engine room. Most of D-12074 was found in a crankshaft, with his legs fused to the ceiling over a meter away from him. D-23574 was fused to a deck plate, and his lower extremities were never located. Nor was D-75224, who simply vanished. Other cases have seen personnel molded into solid steel doors while still conscious, or alternatively, missing limbs that are incorporated into the structure in other locations of the vessel. Standard operating procedure calls for termination of these victims, as all efforts to sever them from the ship have resulted in death of the affected. Now is the part of the episode where I share my thoughts. Talk a bit about what I think about this SCP, the danger level I classify it as, and whether or not it's beneficial, detrimental, mundane, or a bit of both towards society. Let's begin by talking about the SCP itself. So we know that this is a Cannon-class destroyer escort. It was a U.S. Navy ship, and it seems that in this particular ship they experimented with some new kind of technology. Perhaps this technology showed great promise, but the fact that we know for a fact that the Navy cleaned up and destroyed almost all of the relevant documentation with regards to this ship tells us that there is most likely a much more sinister truth behind what their plans were with this. So what do we know? Well, besides the fact that we know that this was a Navy ship, we know that there was something called Project Philadelphia, where it seems they were trying to experiment with the concept of teleportation and camouflage. Now, obviously, this did not turn out well, as they handed off this ship to the SCP Foundation. Now, if we're talking about danger class, based on the description that is given, I would say this is classified as dangerous. Not very dangerous or a planetary threat by any means, but dangerous nonetheless. The reason why I classify it at this danger class in particular is because the effects of being near this ship. Now, granted, it is being under careful watch of the Foundation at two separate sites where the ship seems to go back and forth in between. That being said, though, any D-class personnel that go to maintain the ship usually suffer a fate that is far worse than death, being quite literally fused to the ship. It seems whatever this technology was, this teleportation technology that the Navy was developing, seemed to have quite a wide range of side effects that they did not exactly account for. Or maybe they did, and decided to ignore the worst side effects in the name of progress. Certainly would not be the first time. Now, how do I see this in terms of beneficial, detrimental, or mundane, or a bit of both towards society? In my opinion, overall, I see this as being detrimental, but compared to last week's SCP, Scar Tissue, I would say this is not nearly as detrimental to society as that SCP is. The reason why I argue this is because this SCP is not contagious. If you are affected by it, whether, as it mentions in the description, within a certain radius, or you are inside this ship itself, that is when the effects take hold. But if you are affected, it does not transmit any sort of disease or any of these effects to other personnel. It is only if you are in that radius or in the ship. Therefore, I do not see this as being extremely detrimental, but slightly. It is still detrimental for the very valid reason of the radiation and the quite gruesome effects of being within this ship. The closer you are to it, the worse the effects become. One interesting thing to note here is that it states in the addendum, in the late 1950s, there were numerous books and eyewitness accounts surfaced in attempts to shed light on the Navy's failed experiment, which further complicated containment procedures for the Foundation. But it seems that through well-placed field agents, the Foundation was able to discredit most of these sources, successfully keeping this a secret for the most part. And that is probably for the best. The less people know about this SCP, the less that will try to seek it on their own. And this is one that anyone in their right mind should steer very clear. And with that, I think that brings us to a close on SCP-595. End of file.